The vulnerable population that I chose to discuss for this assignment are juvenile delinquents, and it's going to be presented by myself, Felicia Coppins. Juvenile delinquents are children of a certain age who has violated a criminal law or engaged in a disobedient, indecent, or immoral conduct of behavior. A delinquent child is usually in need of rehabilitation or restoration, just overall SS support. While doing this research, I uncovered some of the leading causes of juvenile delinquency, and the first bullet point speaks of social economic status. This is, when a child may be brought up in a household that has low income, or they may even be struggling with poverty. Now, there may also be violence in the homes. This violence could be primarily targeting the child, or it may be secondary trauma that they see, their one of their parents are being abused, or their siblings are being abused. And then you have poor educational standards. And this is pretty much when a teacher's job is to focus on the class as a whole. However, if this one child has extreme behavioral issues, then their standard of learning may not be as high as the typical child in the classroom. Now, there's also peer pressure that the child may experience. This can intertie into, you know, violence in the homes. Just because of what they're going through, they may want to be accepted, may want to feel loved, so they do things out of pressure, and it may not have been a choice that they would have made independently. And then we have the lack of moral guidance. Now, I strongly believe that parents are only a product of their environment that they were reared in. So you can't necessarily teach a person what you don't know. And so these children, they may really be in the need of mentorship. Now, juvenile delinquency can really impact parental supervision. This looks like, if you have ever heard a parent say, well, I cannot do anything with this child, so I'm just going to let this child go. I can't tell this child anything. So the behavior really causes the lack of parental supervision. And it is, a really known cause of influence. And then we also have the frustration or the failure in school. Every child wants to be successful. We want to be praised. So when that becomes minimal to none, it could be very impactful. Now, drug abuse or the profit of drugs. This ties into the socioeconomic status. They may want to have things that they see other people have, other children have. And so they do things to gain profit. And it's not, a good decision. And then you have child neglect and abuse, and we have just a continuum of criminal behavior. Okay, so we want to know how juvenile delinquency relates to social work practice. Well, there are many interventions when acting in the role of a social worker in relation to juvenile delinquency. The first bullet point speaks on promoting social change. This is one role that we can enact in. And this is basically understanding the needs and the causes of the population that we deal with. Now, a lot of people just look at the behavior of the child, but they're not understanding the underlying issue, the starting cause. And I think that's very important for a social worker to be mindful and aware of. Now, there is also problem solving in human relationships, working with the peers, working with the population, of course, the family, the authority figures, self empowerment. This is basically, encouraging the child that just because you may have had low moral guidance, there's still the the choice and the possibility to create success for oneself. And it's our job to inspire, self-determination, just letting the child know that you are an individual and you can go as far as you want to go and succeed beyond measures. A little bit more of the work that we can do is working alongside with the also independent practice of the justice system. Just activate prevention plans for the child on a primary and a secondary level. Understand that this is a child and the child is not perfect. So we need plans on top of plans. Now, we also need to interface with the justice system. This looks like being present while engaging with the justice system, even if the parent is not present. A lot of times, or in many cases or most cases, the parents are incarcerated themselves, or they're just not in a position to be present for the child whenever they're going through the system. Also, working with the justice system. This looks like being present during the arrest and the release of the child. When the child is being interrogated or questioned, it is very helpful if the social worker is there and also do appropriate follow ups. Now, some evidence based practice that I came across was in shock incarceration. It is a military style prison that focuses on giving offenders independency and structure. Now, a lot of you may have seen Scared Straight, when they bring the children into the prisons and then they are communicating with the prisoners and they're basically trying to, encourage them in their own creative way that this isn't what you want, in short. There's also residential placements, facilities that house delinquents under 21, and they participate in empowering programs, restoration programs, and community service. Probation, I don't necessarily, on a personal aspect, agree that this is the best approach, but juveniles will be under the supervision of a court officer and they are to abide by a set of rules and standards. One theory that I feel like correlates perfectly with this vulnerable population is the family system theory that was created by Dr. Murray Bowen. This theory explains the influence of factors that work together as a system. Depending on how well the following factors are unionized, it can create a positive outcome in a child's life. However, if a factor within the system is jeopardized, then it's likely that the child may experience negative outcomes, such as violence in the homes, lack of moral guidance, socioeconomic status. These are all things that may lead to juvenile delinquency. The AECF Annie E. Casey Foundation is a foundation that has helped to spread knowledge on juvenile delinquents and different ways to assess this vulnerable population. There's something called the color of justice. This is where, she centers in on America's mental health system with the shortcomings in preventions, early interventions, and treatment programs that contribute to the overrepresentation of youth of color in the juvenile justice landscape. I feel like we see this all the time. Also, there's moving beyond youth prisons. And this one particularly is working now in New York City, is where they want to remove these children from faraway facilities that are expensive and ineffective and return these youth to the city, or the immediate area where the parents and caregivers can stay connected to their children and play vital roles in their treatment and rehabilitation. There's also something called Place Matters, and we basically want to improve how the states treat the children involved in the system. And it calls just for an overall full continuum of care, of prevention and reintegration for these kids. And here are the resources. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope that you enjoyed.